Today in the workshop we have a Dacia Sandero, and this is in because it's had an engine management light on the dash. Now after plugging in our code reader, we can see that the engine management has come up because there's an open circuit on the thermostat. So with the car up in the air, you want to take off this bottom under tray. There's a series of 10 mils that go all around the outside of it. So once they are off, you can just bring this down. We're able to see this low pressure thermostat. So just here is another thermostat. The reason I call it the low pressure is because there's a second one just above the gearbox, which is built into a larger plastic housing. Those are the ones that commonly fail, but there is one down here as well. So if you're looking up at it, just attached to this bracket is the thermostat. So if we take off this electrical connector, oh, that's a little bit tight. Not sure if you can see that there, but there's a little bit of green in there. So anything green to do with electrics just means that water has managed to get in there and it started to rust, and that's why it goes green and crusty. So what I think has happened is that the internals of this has failed, allowed the coolant to travel through the electrical part of it, and it's managed to corrode the innards there. So if it's not making a complete circuit because of the corrosion, that's what throws on the code. So before we go ahead and disconnect any of those coolant lines, we're going to have to drain the system. So you want to take off the cap of the coolant reservoir, and then put the vehicle back up in the air. So what I was looking for was a drain plug on the bottom part of the radiator. I can't see one, so what I'm going to do is disconnect one of the coolant pipes off the side of this thermostat housing and then let that drain out. Make sure that you have a container underneath to catch the coolant that's about to come flooding out. What you want to do is push these clips in, give it a wiggle. Oh. So unless you're covered in coolant, you haven't done the job properly. So the same now goes for these two pipes that are up on top. This one was quite tight, but you can see here, you release them not by pulling the clip out like you normally would, but by pressing it in. So by pressing it in, the two pieces here just spread. It makes it a lot easier. So if we push this in, you might need a little help with the screwdriver because the seals are gripped on quite tight. Just want to gently guide it, you don't want to damage the pipe. Once that one is out, we can take this out of the bracket. It's a messy job. For this final one, again, press in, give it a bit of a wiggle, and out it comes. So here's the old part off, and because this is just a swappable item, this can just go straight in the bin. And this is the new part to go on. If you want the part numbers, there they are. So it's just a case of opening this up and getting it fitted to the car. Okay, so what we want to do, this pipe that came off the top, you just pop that straight back on. It should snap into place and you should hear it click. I'm going to feed it up so it can sit in this bracket. Then we can fit this top pipe. And again, wait to hear that click. And the first pipe that we took off. When you're happy that all of the pipes are on and this is sat in the correct place, you want to take the electrical connector and spray a little bit of contact cleaner in there just to make sure we clean this out before we fit it to the new part. What we're going to do is spray this with some contact cleaner just to clean out these connections, just to make sure that there's no green crusty stuff still in there. And we can wipe up any excess because we don't want this soaking wet, because when we double check for leaks, we don't want to think it's leaking when it isn't. Then you can just pop this back on. Again, wait for that little click. Little wiggle. Now we can put some coolant in it. Make sure that we can test for leaks. And then we'll double check the diag to see if that fault code has gone away. So normally there should be Renault green coolant in these engines, but someone's obviously done a coolant flush on this previously, because when we started there was red coolant in here. So now that we're going to top it up, we'll top it up with red again just to make sure that it's the same as the rest of the engine. So we're going to overfill it slightly, just so we can open up some of the bleed nipples to let some of the air out. So in order to get at the bleed nipple on the side of this coolant housing that's down here, we're going to take this pipe off, and there's another bleed nipple just down there on the pipe that's going in towards the inside of the car. Right, so in order to get this pipe off, it should just unclip. You shouldn't need to prise this out with anything, it should just be by hand. Take this clip off, and then it should just pop off. This should just pop off the airbox. Now we've got a bit more access to the side. You can see there's a coolant housing down here, and it's just trying to see where exactly that bleed nipple is. This might be too awkward to see on camera, but just down there I can see a socket for the bleed nipple. Normally they're a little cap that you can twist off, but for some reason not on this particular housing. I can see there's a cutout in it for an Allen key. So let's try and feed this down in there. So I'm using a 6mm Allen key. There's a bit of a tight fit. I can hear it hissing out. I don't want to take this out all of the way, just enough so that it can release the air, and it should start to dribble out of the sides of the plug. When you're happy with that one, I'm going to go down to the back to release the rear bleed screw. Until that's got a nice steady flow. As well as the bleed nipple that's on that housing and the one that's on the pipe going to inside the car, there's also a black 10mm here, which when you undo that, that is also a bleed valve. And there's another bleed valve down here. So you want to make sure that you take these off and wait until you have a steady flow before you put them back on. When you're happy that everything is bled, you can feed this pipe back down into position. What I like to do, just to double check all the bleed nipples are tight, is to put another pressure test onto the system to make sure that you don't have any leaks. It's also a good idea to do this because you want to check the new connections that you've just put onto the new part that you fitted. I left mine at 15 psi for 10 minutes just to make sure that the pressure didn't drop and we're all okay. So now I'm going to put the under tray back on, double check to make sure that fault code has gone away, and then take it on road test. So we've just scanned it again, and we can see the code there for the coolant thermostat open circuit has now gone to memory. So we can clear this. And now we can go on road test. So we've just come back from road test. I'm happy with it. I'm just going to leave the car cool down now before I double check those coolant levels, just to make sure everything's fine for the customer. But every time you disturb anything to do with the coolant, you always want to bring it back up to temperature, make sure that the thermostat opens, make sure that the fan cuts in, and make sure that the heaters are blowing warm inside the car as well, just to make sure that you've got that full circulation of the coolant. Other than checking the coolant level again, that is it for this week's video, guys. I hope this has helped you. If it has, please give us a like. If you have any questions, drop us a comment in the comment section and I'll do my best to get back to you. And please hit that subscribe button. It does a lot to help the channel, and it means that I can spend more time making these videos for you guys. So I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.